Beards,
balms,
tattoos,
goos,
creams,
salves,
oils.
That's what you're getting at BigDobsBeardBalm.com. Promo code METAL, 20% off your entire order.
That's 20% off, promo code METAL at BigDobsBeardBalm.com.
One thing we need to let you know about that's going to be your non-stop, one-stop shop for everything that we do.
Hell yeah. If you want more content from us, if you want to see what we do behind the scenes, if you want to get your little grubby, dirty hands all over all the content we don't let the world see, we've got shows you've never even heard of before. Maybe you'll find one or some behind the scenes on one that truly captivates you. We've even got written interviews with some industry professionals in animation and some other stuff that I think you'd really, really enjoy. We've got videos from our cameos that we've gotten from rock stars. A lot of cool stuff. For just $3 a month, you can support this podcast on Patreon at patreon.com/metalmassacre. Just become a patron today for anywhere from $3 to $8, depending on how hard you want to rock, and you get some pretty cool stuff for it that no one else gets to see.
If you love what we do and you want a little bit more behind the scenes and extra stuff you can't get anywhere else, that's the place to go. But again, if you got no bucks to toss our way, not a big deal. Thanks for supporting the show, and we're going to try and keep ourselves boosted enough that I'm just going to be confident and say, do your best if you'd like to, with no extra money inquired. Hop into our Discord.
Yeah.
You can always ask us and email us for a direct invite link. We have enough boosters currently and constantly that our server's been over a few hundred people as we've been growing this thing, so you can use the discord.gg/Metal Massacre and be able to get into our feed. But if it, like I said, we're doing our best to grow it. Just reach out if you want to hang out with us. And there, I don't even want to tell you what's in there.
It's
It's a lot.
It's Pandora's box, man. You just come hang out with us. We got a lot of fun events and a lot of cool stuff happening. Discord.gg/Metal Massacre. Fun ass place.
Yeah,
but
man.
Dustin, enough. Let's get back to another episode.
What is going on, you metalheads, and welcome back to the final episode
Yeah, this is the season finale for season 1.
ever. No, I'm kidding.
Ever. We'll never do this again. Enjoy it.
I did realize I just like the
Bastards.
final episode. And you're like,
final
no, of season 1. Calm down, man.
Dear Lord.
We got nothing but time to go ahead. But we are going to take a little break. But first of all, thank you. I am your Czar of Nar.
And I'm the weirdo with a beardo. No, you don't get to finish your name. I'm going to cut you off.
Okay. That one reset my soul for a second.
Dear Lord. It took all of his patience not to punch me straight in the face right there.
Anyway, honestly, we usually get right into the goofing, which we're going to do now anyways. But today, we're going to be talking about some our favorite international metal bands, or ones that we've been found as of lately. And international meaning away from us in the U.S. Because Metallica's a U.S.
There's a lot of U.S.
band,
metal, man.
But and some of them go international or multinational popularity. But what we're talking about is some of our favorites that don't stem from here, because we were so lucky to talk with Johan from Dark Tranquillity, which we're going to get into towards the back half of this episode, like we were always there. But
yeah,
they're coming. We're going to do more prep later, but they just as of this time, as it's out.
Yep. As of the time this episode airs. Yep.
Lots of singles were put out, but End Time Signals, their next album coming out. So again, big shout out to them, and inspired us, like we have with other shows, to be like, man, what are some of our favorite ones? Because I'll be honest, Dark Tranquillity was one of those bands, and we even brought it up during the episode. I've been listening to them for years, but they kind of come and go because there's so much metal here in America that I was like, who is it we're getting again? I want to make sure I got the right one. This one that's got millions and millions and millions of plays.
Yeah.
Where the fuck have I been? I remember them. They've been around forever, but I thought it'd be a good episode to kind of highlight and expose some of our favorite stuff that isn't always just pumped right in our face. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and bands from other countries that have made it so big that they have fame in bigger other countries, have gone international and have blown up. One of the first couple that I immediately start to think of when you throw that topic or that defining thing at me is Cradle of Filth and Children of Bodom.
Yeah.
They're both just like super European and like have made it to the point of like they have a huge following in America and all over the world and have toured all over, probably almost every continent these people have played. You know what I mean?
And again, we're sitting into international metal bands. Right. That's what we're doing. I mean, like, fuck, because then obviously the list would be like the Beatles and AC/DC.
Well, yeah.
You know what I mean? But like, AC/DC, sure, yeah.
But I think like also with these bands that we're specifically talking about today, they have like there's a lot of like style points with these bands, and they're not just like,
these are just some of our favorites.
This isn't just like bands that are like, oh yeah, the Beatles. They come from a different, like, you know, the metal is different when you're talking international. There's it's a whole nother like plateau is to be an international metal
and
band.
Honestly, some of the festivals, as if we have European listeners, be like, yeah, no shit, but like it's the festivals out there are
insane.
Miles of people,
dude, insane.
Miles, literal hundreds of thousands.
I was listening to the Van Flip podcast. David interviewed Mikhail, who I believe is the singer, right? And he was talking about Hellfest. And I was watching these clips, and I was just like, dude, I want to go to Hellfest so bad. Like, and like anything,
that's a bucket list shit.
Like, God, dude, these big fucking festivals sound like so much fun. And like, the closest thing we have to something like that is like Knotfest in Iowa. And in Des Moines, or right outside of Des Moines, which is like fairly big, you know. But we don't get a lot of those kind of things for metal anymore in like, especially in the Midwest.
Yeah,
but Europe is like
tough. They have
so saturated with them, and I love it.
Shout out, I guess, to Slam Dakota, because they do a really good job of bringing like extreme metal acts to like that's one of the. It's still pretty.
How big is that? How big is that though?
It's relatively underground, but like that said, like I can name it by name, so that's why I wanted to shout them out, because it probably only brings like maybe a couple thousand people, but it's South Dakota, and like it's a ground root effort.
That's
like,
pretty cool.
Yeah, there's really not that many. Like, they're doing it right, but it's just hard. You know, EDM is huge and pop is popular.
Yeah, EDM has more of them, but I'm more or less talking about those size of shows.
Brother, you got to remember where we are. Let me hear you out. Not just because we're in the Midwest, but hear me out, brother.
Well, yeah, I know that.
We are in Omaha specific, and even all the way up towards like Chicago and north. We are in what we like to call the college football belt.
Yeah,
because all of these basically the biggest areas and the biggest towns in that middle to all of the Midwest, so like from Ohio proper all the way down to almost Missouri, which is close to the south, and up to Minnesota.
Yeah, that's
all college towns, like really the biggest ones besides Chicago, Omaha, and KC, which are also, they have giant universities there. The people there in Chicago, Death Fest also does some crazy shit, as far as I think that's what it's called. They do that besides the Lollapalooza and all that stuff too, but like there's a huge metal scene in Chicago.
Oh, for sure. And here's the thing. I'm not saying that
I'm not shitting either.
Any of these places don't have good scenes.
But it's not LA. It's not.
But even like in America, there's rarely metal shows of that caliber. There's like Ozfest, which was going on for a while. I don't know if it's still going on. Things like that. But there's only a few of them. I feel like in Europe they have so many of these. And maybe that's a misconception from where I'm sitting on my side of the pond. And someone please correct me, like comment on this episode or send us a message on socials. But like,
no one do it like the Euros when it comes to that size and scope.
It's crazy.
Big Day Out in Australia back in the early thousands used to be about that big for metal stuff. Because that's honestly one of my favorite videos of System of a Down from back in the day.
And it hasn't always been that way, but it's always had the stage presence. Like I think back to bands like Mayhem. And Immortal, and like all these bands that just have like weird stage presence and are like looking crazy, and it kind of fueled that, like, oh, let's make this bigger than life kind of thing, and to where you're having like big.
And as I say that,
events like that,
there's someone actually also specifically I won't name her, but there's someone in our Discord that'd be upset with us because Brazil do it upright too.
Oh yeah,
like some of those South American ones that like. Well, I mean, like, fucking, like, think about it, like the Rio Festival, Carnival, like the thing like they do that has nothing to do with metal. I mean, like, think about the fucking crazy 1,000,000-person spectacle that is. They throw,
and that's just like a fucking town event.
Shout out,
like,
shout out, fucking South America, dude.
That's
like,
crazy.
People down there do the shit right, and when they throw festivals in Chile or like Brazil or even Mexico, like things get mistaken for earthquakes.
Yeah, I saw Death Clock was playing Mexico finally.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that's pretty fucking cool. Like, that's going to be a wild fucking show because I don't know if they've ever played Mexico. We're buddies with Bat Metal in our Discord. He's one of the guys in the Bat Metal, which is the Mexican Death Clock cover band, essentially. And they're really fucking good. And they play like almost just as well as Death Clock, honestly.
That's fucking sick,
and
dude.
they've been playing Mexico for like years, and I know they've been trying to get them to
bring them here.
Yeah, so they're like going insane.
Mexico City is like a beautiful place. It's a giant mecca, and it's a futuristic looking city with like way up in the altitude that has like some of the most high end like shopping and compared to places like London and fucking Hong Kong and Berlin and like New York. Yeah, Mexico City is a great hub. But I guess we can get into some of our favorite bands, just kind of going back and forth. I mean, like, honestly, I'd like to almost just keep having a conversation, but a lot of these are.
Well, I mean, as they come to you, bring them up. Like I was just
Sepultura, because they're Brazilian.
Yeah.
Like, first of all, everybody likes that.
Yeah,
first
they're
of all,
classic.
Everybody like that.
Everybody like that.
I mean, like, so again, like I said, shout out South America, and arguably one of the most famous South American bands, Sepultura, in the metal range. So like. Because a lot of pop and a lot of hip hop comes out of there, a lot of reggaeton, sure. But like we're talking metal here, right? So, I mean, some of my favorites. I'll put it this way: like one of my favorite bands, period, is Amon Amarth. Amarth, however you want to say that.
Where are they from?
Sweden.
They're from Sweden.
Sweden.
Cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah, there's a lot of Swedish bands on this list, including Dark Tranquillity. Again, that's cool. Like Norway had like the really, and we'll talk about it more. I don't want to like blow the load now because we're gonna do so much with Johan later.
Sure.
That we talked a bit about like how he perceived some of the Norwegian stuff towards like. Not just the stuff that was like really of the lore of the brutality of that time, but like those bands compared to others. And I think Norway is just a little bit more black metal, and Sweden offers a little bit more of like the melodic and commercial, like more available to be commercialized. And so you hear a lot of very famous
everything's
Swedish
more
bands.
Available to be commercialized compared to black metal.
Right.
That's like an unfair fight right there,
and
because
like
black metal was intentionally made by most of these bands to be unlistenable by the masses. Most people couldn't listen to it. They're like, this is bad. Because no, seriously, because it was part of the philosophy of black metal to make music that non-believers aren't worthy of listening to.
Yeah,
and that's how they saw it.
You're not cool enough.
Yeah, you do not fit in with the black metal.
But Meshuggah is Swedish too, for example. Like I said, I just kind of want to get all these since we're off the top and we're on topic with it. But like
Meshuggah's really good.
I mean, like those are my favorites that everybody likes.
I wanted to bring up something that I thought
is from Sweden too.
No way.
That's
awesome. There's so many Swedish bands. Isn't In Flames from Sweden too? Yeah. Yeah.
See,
Sweden has brought us so much good music. We should go to Sweden sometime.
Thank you.
That'd be really cool to go to Sweden and visit people and be like, let's fucking.
Malmo is like, honestly, again, like we talk about, it's not like as big as like Hong Kong, like I said, but like if you go to like Malmo, Sweden, and you look it up, like it's it's the future in action. It's a beautiful place. Really cool.
That's really cool.
And all those Scandinavian areas, it's a little rainy, it's a little cold, but you get you're in the fucking like foothills of mountains and fjords. It's one of them. It's the stuff that Lord of the Rings wanted to write about. Like, it's the things that inspired people to write about giants.
I think it's only appropriate that we bring up the news that Gojira made.
Yes.
They played the Paris opening ceremony for the Olympics.
And most people said, I mean, like, I watched it last night,
people
actually.
People were freaking out about it.
It was pretty cool.
Yeah, well, it's funny because I went to TikTok right after it happened, and it was all over TikTok, and people are like, what is wrong with the Olympics? And like, they had like all and I love it because it's like, that's the press you kind of want when you're a metal band, is like, you kind of want to outrage people a little bit, because they played and they were all on like windowsills, like small little windowsills. So like they could fall. Like the windowsill was like no bigger than my desk, and he was just like playing guitar with his foot on a riser, and the drummer was on one, and they were all on these little windowsills outside. And then in an open window, it was black, but then they had Marie Antoinette holding her own head, and she like said this little like weird speech in French, and it looked really realistic, like she was holding her own head and it was talking and shit.
That's pretty sick.
And it like freaked out a lot of people, and they're like, this is satanic, and they had like all this pyro going off around the gates of the building and shit. Like,
France trying to do it right, bro.
Yeah, France really knows what they're doing, and especially like Gojira getting their due, man. That band has been working so hard forever.
Yeah, I mean,
so fucking hard.
France inspires some of like, again, like, you know, they get the brunt of the jokes since World War II, but like obviously again, like France is a place that has such a rich culture of always being very artistic.
Yeah,
that like they're dramatic. You know, it makes. People are like complaining about more than just the screamo music.
Right.
Is this screamo?
Right.
But like, I mean, like how their whole thing was like, this is weird.
Yeah.
But that's memorable. Do you just want the same bullshit over and over? And like you were saying, yeah, Gojira has worked so fucking hard.
Yeah.
And toured with so many people for so long. One of my favorite bands, and like there's like the lighter side, just like, you know, just pop rock, like fucking, not pop rock, but like fucking around, like as Phoenix. They're like weird, kind of like almost like electronic band. Mm-hmm. They're from, I believe, Paris proper, most of them. Right, but like, yeah, they went and saw them.
That's cool.
At it's not even there anymore. Built so regardless.
I think I got one of their vinyls.
Yeah, they're really, really good.
Yeah,
and like France has a lot to offer. And there's obviously more bands than that, but just to kind of keep it moving. A lot of what we were looking into is, you know, like there's so many European influences in America because of. Well, like I said, the Beatles and the Stones, that kind of stuff, like coming directly here, and Beatlemania, along with the King of Rock and Roll and blah 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 with Elvis and blues
I feel like
explosion at that time. Music is so rooted between those two for our history directly, and it's where our eyes have always been. But there's so many. You have a Japanese band on yours, and Japan X was one of mine from Japan as well.
One thing I was gonna say is that I think one thing that's important is like you have to look at like the scale of success here. For these bands, and it's different than just being a band that's from another like country. Like there's a lot of indie bands from a lot of other countries that are starting to get play right now that could end up on this list one day, but I don't think have been influential enough. And part of it is like, and this is kind of a fact, is like if you can make your music made in America, or not made in America, but you can make your music like blow up in America, I feel like there is a really good chance to get it to blow up in other demographics.
100%.
America, sadly, is one of the biggest like
culture movers
on the globe. Like it's Europe and America are like the bigger ones that everyone is kind of like culturally looking at. And like you look at it all over the world where people take American culture and they incorporate it into their culture somehow, and like we're taking other people's culture and incorporating it into American culture,
because
like because it's a big melting pot.
Yeah,
and it's just crazy to see. So like a lot of these bands for me are bands that we have like seen and grown up with, but they're bands that started in other countries, like Him. Yeah. Him is one of those bands that because of Bam Margera became an international metal band, and they kind of already were, but they were really getting a bump up from Viva La Bam and all the press and all that stuff. So that really helped. They're a band that I grew up with. They're from Finland. And if I'm not mistaken, Ville Valo, before he came back, when he retired, he just opened up a sex shop in Helsinki.
That sounds
and was
about
just
right.
Like, this is my life now. And I was like, cool. And now he's done the Ville Valo project, VV. And I'm like, I don't know, man. I'm just not into it anymore. Like, I am one of those people that I'm very nostalgic about why I like things.
Yeah.
So, like, I'm going to like a moment in time of your band. I might not like what you're doing now.
It's better to just kind of leave yourself blissfully ignorant. You know what I mean? Just like, I remembered it great. There's certain video games that I will not replay.
Right.
I just let them sit on my shelf and go, yeah, never again. You want to know why? Because I remember it being awesome, and I don't want to pick this up and be like, GoldenEye controls like fucking dog water.
Right. we were having a conversation before this podcast about like when bands release music and like they'll release different versions of one song.
Yeah, or demos or something.
And Him released a version of what's the cover? Wicked Game by Chris Isaac.
Oh yeah.
And it was on the original Razorblade Romance album, like that released in like 2004, 2006, something like that. And I had that, right? And then that album got really rare and you couldn't find it anywhere. And I honestly, you'd have to like go on eBay and pay a bunch now.
Yeah.
But the point being, they re-released the album and remastered a bunch of the tracks, and they didn't have that cover on there anymore. So everyone was like, where's that cover? And then they took like all the shit down, like you can't find that cover on streaming anymore.
Something.
Yeah. But then they re-released a new version of that cover later. But you can't
have
find,
to like re-up the licensing or pay them for it.
I really liked the original version better. And I was just like, fuck, their original cover was so good. But now I can't listen to it if I don't have the original CD from 2004 or whatever.
And that's why physical medium still matters.
I know. So I'm like, I gotta go buy me one of those. Like, I love when I find international metal bands like that, and I get into them so much. And there's a couple, like you mentioned earlier. There's a Japanese one that I have. And they're one that I'm slowly getting into. Completely different type of metal. Yeah. It's not like him. This is not love metal. This is like
not caveman headbang and slam
Cannibal Corpse shit. Yeah. It's intense.
It's good though.
I
like it.
It's really fun for like doing physical stuff. Yeah. And like really pump up kind of music and playing video games, doing whatever. Like it's called Coffins. I forget the newest album that just dropped. It's got some kind of wickedly brutal name, but it's got a fucking severed head on the fucking cover. I would totally check this out. Coffins. Yeah, I've had my eye on a lot of international metal bands for a while, and then we decided we were going to do this episode, and we were like, oh, we have this interview with Johan. Let's talk about international metal and like kind of highlight these bands that have made it to that point. And like, I think a new one that I haven't really started getting into, but I've listened to a couple songs is Ginger. I believe they're from the Ukraine. Mm-hmm. And I know they were like, I guess they like went back to Ukraine when it was happening for a while or something. Or like,
yeah, I think that they had.
I was like, that's insane, dude. Holy crap.
I think a couple of them like had to just to go like check family and like I don't want to speak out of turn because at the time I feel like something was like, because I think they're one of those places that like you have to have like a mandatory service if it's a call to arms kind of thing, and like so like a lot of their dudes were like, hey, here's why I can't, but I have to come back and like go check on my loved ones, my families, and settle up. And then they had to cancel a tour with Slipknot, actually, which is why we got to see. That was the one we went to, which is why we got to see Wage War.
Right when that was happening.
They pulled them up, and now, like, unfortunately, but also fortunately for Wage War, like again, that was a thing. They were already getting big, and that skyrocketed them because they had to go tour. Like they felt like little kids on stage. They kept saying, they're like, we're here with Slipknot, dude. Yeah, like, right. What the fuck?
You just felt so happy for them. You're
like they were like, they ripped us out of the swamp in the middle of Florida where we're from. Like, this is fucking wild. Prayers. So, of course, they did the right things. They shouted out Ginger and said, like, hey, this is like what's going on with Rem in Russia is fucking crazy. And like, like we're so grateful for this opportunity. We never would have had it. And then like they actually like, I think they said that like they were like, yeah, with their blessing, like those are the guys who'd want to take our place. They're fucking good. They're coming up. So like they did their due diligence. But it was like a really special moment that I remember too, not just obviously for them, but because it was so much that they weren't trying to be too full of themselves. So like, this is fucking wild. Like the whole time that they were doing it, and like, 'cause they were playing arenas now, like to 20,000 people.
Yeah, it was cool to see their come up, and it was unfortunate that we couldn't see Ginger because maybe that could have gotten me into that band. Like I've yet to really listen to too much of them, but I need to because everyone's telling me to. Spirit Box and Ginger are apparently two female-led bands I really need to check out from what our Discord is telling me. I have two more on my list, and I'm sure that more will come up, but this is just what I kind of roughly wrote down before we were recording. Motorhead.
Sure.
From the UK. Obviously a staple of that roadhouse metal, and a lot of bands emulate that in the United States. A lot of bands emulate that in the United States. Like you'll find a lot of Motorhead cover bands at here, and like a lot of bassists that will sing like Lemmy, and a lot of bands that will sound like that. And maybe a mixture of the three sometimes. But also, who was the last one? Oh, Rammstein.
Oh, yeah.
Like, just oozes European.
Yeah.
Like, they do everything in German.
International juggernauts.
Just watch their keyboard player for 15 seconds. They are so European. I love it. It's so cool. And they have, like, the coolest pyrotechnics out of any band I've seen. It's the closest thing to going to a Death Clock show without going to a Death Clock show.
Right.
Like, and that's kind of cool. So,
which is funny that it like cannot be considered international metal because they're technically based in space.
it's what, galactic metal?
Galactic metal. And then like two of the people are from Scandinavia too, rather than like the actual people in breaking the fourth wall in America. Galactic metal.
Galactic metal.
Galactic clock.
They're from the moon.
Yeah, the only other ones I really wanted to shout out, again, much like you were, like a lot of emulation comes, and honestly a lot of like the writing style for like my dad, who's a guitar player in our band, is Judas Priest.
Yeah.
And they're European since the fucking 69 is technically when they first came about, which is wild to think about. And then like Jake, our other guitar player, he's really influenced by like honestly like American guitar playing. Though he like loves like fucking like Havoc and Municipal Waste and Jungle Rot and Riot Act and fucking.
I think we all love Black
Pantera.
Sabbath.
Black Sabbath, and again like we're talking about titans of industry at this point too, and Ozzy and so on and so forth.
I never. This is going to be controversial.
Up Tony Hawk when you're talking on a skate podcast. It's like, we all know Tony Hawk, the Godfather of everything.
Right.
That's Ozzy, you know what I mean?
Right. I'm probably going to get some fucking shade for this. But I'm not that big into Pantera.
No, honestly, I don't think he'll take that much shade for it. Because, they had the whole, all the racist shit that has been alleged for a long time with them, and like that kind of
it's
stuff.
Not even has anything to do with that. And honestly, like
a lot of that came to light more sooner than not.
I'm not down with that shit. But also, if it had never happened, I'm still just like, listen, I like two of the songs that can kind of get me out of bed, and I'm like, all right, cool,
Yeah.
But like for the most part, it's just not the style that I gravitate towards.
I don't want to sound like I'm a huge fan of them, and also not to just cover my ass here. It's not being woke. That's not the fucking thing. My point is, like, I'm not like an end all be all die hard Pantera guy. Like Jake kind of is, just because he has a dime bag like signature guitar. And like it was nowadays you're not bringing out the Confederate flag guitar. You just don't fucking do that.
Right.
But like the point being is like honestly we do a lot of slides in Molten and stuff like that too. There's that slidey nature of it. Some people love Dimebag's tone. Some people hate it. I don't think it's a hot take to say that you don't like Pantera that much. And like not hate, but like there's like two songs I like. Whatever, fuck the rest. No. Like I like a lot more than that. There's a couple albums I would put in like my top 10 metal albums, I think. But like, regardless, no. I totally get that. I'm a Tool fan. Not everybody likes it.
Yeah.
But yeah, like to kind of round it out, I suppose. I mean, like, fuck, dude, the Scorpions are pretty metal for their day, and they're German. Rock you like a goddamn hurricane, brother.
Here I am.
But like I said, we pretty much brought the rest of them up. The only one that I really wanted to shout out was the last two because they haven't been brought up yet. Behemoth from Poland. They're really good. I've always loved them. Obviously, legends of the industry when it comes to like what they've really done around like that crazy fucking Eastern European block of the world, touring through Russia, doing crazy shit. And I've always listened to a lot of Primordial, and I didn't realize for a long time. I've known for a long time, but didn't realize for a while they're from Ireland. So like, Primordial fucking rules. They rip, and that's really all I got to say about them.
Well, if you guys have an international metal band that has made it to that kind of level and you want us to check them out, maybe we forgot one of your favorites and
we're
fucking
missing
pissed.
so many.
Maybe you have one that you don't think we've heard of. Let us know here on Spotify.
Like
I know you can.
We barely touched into anywhere into Asia. We barely touched into Australia.
Yeah, there's a lot we missed. So if you're listening on Spotify, you can actually like comment on the episode. So let us know there, or go to our Instagram, Metal Massacre Podcast, and say, "Hey, you dickbags, you forgot such and such."
Yeah, honestly, let's make an open discussion.
You guys fucking suck. Why are you doing this?
The world's biggest international metal list. Right?
Yeah.
Let's start today.
Let us know.
Let's throw it in the comments. We're starting a comment war.
I think it'd be fun to hear some of these and maybe review them down the line and broaden some of our album reviews here on the show.
And if you're a band that isn't in America, tag yourself.
Here's the thing. We would do album reviews of all the stuff that comes out all the time because there's plenty of stuff coming out. But to be honest, like, it's really got to hit me for me to want to review it.
There's also enough people doing that. Like I said, there's a trillion, and some do it better than others. Again, shout out to Lame Goat.
I would say, For sure.
Some do it better than others.
I would totally say go back and listen to our High on Fire review. I think it was episode 4.
That was one of my favorite albums we've listened to this year.
Yeah, that was one of my favorite episodes.
Well, we were building not just the show, but we were building, and again, this is the last episode of this fucking season.
I'm getting teary-eyed.
We can reminisce for a second.
Yeah, man.
No, I mean, like, honestly, when we started, we came out hot with like nice interviews we were putting in the tank, not to break the wall or talk about us too much, because we have a great interview to get into.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just wanted to again just kind of reminisce and say like, hey, we started with album reviews because we were still building this roster of amazing people. So I do want to shout out again Raptor from Necrogoblicon for coming on, Johan here that we're about to get into a Dark Tranquillity, Vinny from Belushi Speedball, Alicia from Dragon Force. I feel like I did because I know there's more. The guys in Gorgatron.
Yep.
Both Cam and Carl.
Yeah,
those guys are awesome.
You're remembering a lot right now.
I'm doing great. I'm doing this off the
It's been a great first season. I think this is the best kind of interpretation of who we are and what we like as far as metal. And this international metal was kind of a always eventually gonna happen episode, and it just fit perfectly here with the Johan interview.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of showcases the other stuff we like about this season. So the one thing I will say before I shut up and we just hit play on this interview is season 2 is already booking at the time of this recording, and we have so much stuff in the wings waiting for you guys.
Pretty good. We I said, we want to do a lot more video.
Yeah.
We already have some pretty fucking cool people lined up. I will not lie to you.
Well, in that, and expect more content. We really want to crank out more content. A lot of stuff on the Patreon. And heighten that frequency of episodes. So expect probably twice as much as you did in this first season from us here in season 2. And do check us out on YouTube, Metal Massacre Podcast.
Last person I did want to save this on, honestly, I remembered. Big shout out to Dustin Trinan of Pariah.
Oh, God, that dude.
We would honestly...
We owe him so much.
We have him in a little group chat, the Metal Massacre Bros, and honestly, you guys have only heard him on the very one of the first episodes of the show.
Episode 2, yeah.
Episode 2, after we introduced ourselves. We honestly, I don't want to say we wouldn't be anybody without him, but he was such a great person. I was like, yeah, stand on my shoulders. I'm going to lift you up there.
He's like the Sam Raimi to our Bruce Campbell.
You know what I'm saying?
You know what I mean? Like, he's the guy that it's not that we wouldn't be anywhere, it's that the show wouldn't be what it is.
Yeah, it wouldn't have came this far this fast.
Oh, for sure.
With the connections that we have and being able to be just like so unconditionally nice to us. So didn't want anything in return.
Such a good guy. I feel so bad he was in town and I missed him. And I was like, fuck. All right, well, now I got to fly to LA and get lunch with you. Fuck.
And we will do it if we have to, my friend. But again, I just wanted to slow it down and say, hey, before we roll into like one of my favorite interviews that we've done this season, thank you. This has been fun, and we've already started to do shit for season 2. So this isn't like a goodbye or farewell. It's just there's gonna be a gap, and hey, we've seen exponential growth in this first time that we've done it. So we're gonna keep posting plenty of shit online, real time that you'll be able to see, and we'll link anywhere to find our Patreon and hang out with us in our Discord at the end of the show.
All right, have fun. Listen to the interview. Go listen to some international metal. We're out.
What is going on, metalheads, and welcome to the most important part of the show. I am your Czar of Nar, Dustin, along with the weirdo with the beardo, Lucian, as we do. But it's not about us. Today we have a very, very, very important guest that we were able to grab all the way from Sweden. We have Johan from the band Dark Tranquillity. My friend, thank you for taking the time. How are you?
Hello. Thank you, guys. I'm really good. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So are you in Sweden right now?
Yeah.
God,
yeah,
that's so cool. I'm just geeking out because like it's somewhere I've always wanted to go, and like it just seems like so much fun when you see pictures of it. Have you always lived in Sweden, or was that somewhere you moved to?
No, I've always lived here. Down in I live in Malmo, which is south next to Copenhagen, but I grew up just 50 kilometers from here, but I've lived in Malmo since 2005. But yeah, I've always lived in Sweden. Yeah,
that's rad. Well, thanks for coming on the show, and thanks for taking the time. I know you guys are probably really, really busy.
figuring stuff out before this next album drop in August. I think it's August 16th. End Time Signals come out, and you guys already dropped 3 songs off of it. And I gotta say, like, I am kind of a newer Dark Tranquillity fan. Okay. So I went through all the old stuff. I wanted to get kind of the discography of where you guys have been so far. And one thing that really impressed me is as I started getting into the newer music around, let's say, like 2017, 2018, there's a noticeable shift in the paradigm of the music. And I think it's important to talk about these next 3 songs. Would you say these are kind of the defining sound of this next album, or is there still a lot more we haven't heard?
I guess both. I mean, yeah. I mean, we wanted to have a good cross section of kind of different types of songs as the singles, and but there is also more to the album that is not showcased on these 3 singles. So, but I think it's kind of a good indication over all these 3 songs that kind of what kind of album it is. Yeah,
it's definitely holding true to the style that has always been there. You know, the Euro style, lots of keys, lots of very heavy progressive melodies and that kind of stuff. But it's I am honestly I've been following for a long time myself. I've been aware since, I mean, hell, the band has been around since longer than I've been alive, technically. But listening to these newer songs, it does seem to have a bit of a transition forward, and not in any way that takes away from anything that's been done. It just seems like a natural evolution of the band. And anybody who's done any small research has known that you were originally playing live with them, and now you've been, I guess, elevated to being like one of the lead guitar player. How has that been for you, being someone that's been able to play in so many projects, but now take the role of working in a different band and having to be able to create like a creative lead, I'm sure, when you're writing?
Well, it's been great. And yeah, it's I've been a fan of the band since the first album. When Skydancer came out, I was 13, and I was way into that kind of well, of course, all the standard metal bands and brutal death metal bands, but me and my buddies were really into that whole new thing with melodic death metal. So Dark Tranquillity was one of those bands we followed since the start. And then I've been listening to, well, I mean, like a lot of people do, you kind of, sometimes you lose track of a band. You listen for a couple of albums and really into it, and then it kind of, your attention kind of drops. But yeah, I've been listening to the band since the beginning, and then yeah, doing my own bands since the teenage years, and Andromeda, progressive metal band, and Non-Exist, and Skyfire, more death metal, melodic death. So I was kind of well prepared and kind of versed into this style that the band has. And then so it was great. But yes, early 17 started playing. We did a bunch of tours, 17, 18, and then in 19 we started writing Moment, and I was kind of invited to participate and kind of add to some of the demos they were doing. So in 19 I started writing with the band. And then, I've been getting more and more, responsibility. So that's just great for me, because I love to write music. And
that's got to feel like a dream come true. I mean, you were listening to them at 13, and now you're playing guitar with them. Like,
yeah,
to come full circle like that. Not a lot of people say they have gone to that on that route, and I think that's just really cool, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So 17, we joined the band. 19, getting more involved. It's almost 25 now, and you guys are dropping a new album later in the year. What's the next big thing for you? Are you guys getting ready for another tour to push this album? When would that take off?
Yeah, we have announced a North American tour with Amorphis and I guess it's a U.S. support act called Fires in the Distance. In September, October, and then in the whole November and maybe a bit into December, we do first part of Europe, because we're going to do another European tour later, but we start with this. So the whole autumn is very busy, and before that we have a bunch of festivals as usual. And a few more singles and a few more videos to those singles coming, and so we're pretty busy.
That's awesome. Do you, as a person from Sweden, I want to know, because we're American, we know nothing of Euro culture or metal, the Euro metal or anything like that. Is there a big difference between touring in Europe than America? And if so, like, what do you think it is?
I would say the fans are not that different. I would say they're pretty much the same kind of, easygoing, enthusiastic people overall, I think, at our shows. The kind of infrastructure and the whole conditions, North America compared to Europe is pretty different, because I think there's more of a class division in the US. I think if you're a bigger band, you have a lot more. You have actually venues with showers. So you have actually backstage. Like if you tour North America, it's a bit poor in that. I mean, even we played, for example, the Metro in Chicago, which is a great classic venue, big venue. There's no shower backstage. Like, what the fuck is that? There's no food backstage. There's it's pretty poor. But I mean, the venues can be good, and some of the fans, of course. So, but in Europe, it's I think it's a bit smoother in that we actually have catering and you have proper facilities. Not always, but
I think that's funny that you brought that up. I don't want to interrupt you.
It's more those conditions that are different, but the fans are pretty much the same, I would say.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, we got done with a small weekend here where we traveled just kind of locally with the band, and funny enough that when you say that, he said the same thing actually, because he was like, I remember when we played with you guys back in your hometown in Omaha. They actually had like a washing machine and places to do clothes and catering with food and places to shower and wash and all of that. And I was like, yeah, they do it right. There's a few places here in Omaha that do it really well, but I think you're spot on the mark there. I've never toured Europe, but something to look forward to. A nice meal, nice shower.
Yeah, that is very American. Some of them do have showers, some of them don't. You might get food, you might not. It's kind of a crapshoot when you do. I feel any venue in America, you're just never gonna know, because there's so many different types too of venues. Like you might be playing in a corner. The next night you might be playing an actual bigger club venue. Like there's so much variety in America.
Yeah.
It's always seemed funny to me, like what's been heralded as, because obviously like Europe is riddled with tradition. It's been around for forever and a half. But in America, I think a lot of the clubs that, like, when people talk about like, oh, you got to play here and there just because of the pageantry, the tradition, it's been around. And then you go there and you're like, no,
it's kind of a shithole, man. Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, but you have some really great venues too. But but sometimes it's interesting. Like if you play the Whiskey in LA, and it's just extremely, tradition, has a lot of tradition, and then you go there, it's like, oh, it's great, but it's not that special. But
yeah, the stories kind of talk up the stuff a little bit more, for sure.
Do you have a favorite place worldwide that you've toured? Is there a city or town or venue in specific that has stuck out to you?
Well, there's been a
good or bad.
Yeah. Okay. Let's leave out the bad. But like last time in Paris was amazing. It was at l'Olympia, which is a extremely classic venue with all the greats play there, and it was pretty much packed. So that was fantastic. And you have some great venues in the Netherlands, and and some, I mean, great ones in the US and Canada too. It's hard for me to pick. It's hard.
At a
I'm
certain
sure
point,
after a while
blends.
you do so many of them and it starts to blur. Am I right? Like,
That's true.
So go ahead, Notion. Go ahead.
I was just gonna ask, like, so Dark Tranquillity is it's kind of this mesh of genres, in my opinion. You guys have that melodic, you're very progressive, you've got both screaming and singing, but it's not in the terms of like post-hardcore or any of those kind of genres that I'm not gonna lie, when I usually hear singing and screaming, for me 80 to 90% of the time it's a deal breaker, but I really like how you guys have meshed them in together, and they're almost working in tandem with each other, the vocals. It's not, there's no competition, there's no, well, I'm waiting for this guy to come back. It fits so well together. Was the blending of genres something that was integral to this band when you were joining? Was that something you knew, hey, I'm gonna have to step in and kind of sow these seeds together, or was that already kind of a given?
Well, I think it's been going on a long time in this band. It's kind of been integrated into the, well, almost tradition, since the band is pretty old. So I think a really important album for this side of the band is Projector from '98, which was the first time they did a lot of clean vocals. They had done before, but not to that degree, and also added more like synth and more atmospheric sides to the music. So since Projector, I think it's been kind of in the spectrum of the band. And then, back and forth. There were a couple of albums where there wasn't too much clean singing at all. Then it came back, and then it was getting more like We Are the Void and Construct. It was getting more and more, a bit more and more synth layers and clean vocals. So it's been back and forth, but I think it's been now almost 25 years. It's been kind of cemented into the style of this band to have both those kind of sides merge in the music.
Do you think there's ever going to be any other genres in the future that Dark Tranquillity gets, I guess, aroused by and wants to kind of feed into what you're doing? Like, is there something that you could see that maybe you haven't done yet you want to add in, or do you think you're kind of set into where you are?
I think it's pretty set, but the thing is, for me, it feels pretty damn wide. I mean, okay, it's still all dark, heavy music, but it's pretty wide from blast beats and like very screeching vocals and to the other part, which is very mellow and also dark, but clean vocals, a lot of synths. So to me, it's pretty wide, and also it's kind of in the band's DNA also to have some kind of progressive riffs and stuff. Yeah. So I think, I don't know what else genre could be merged in there. I mean, more like more shredding fusion, or more no, I don't think that would work. I don't think I don't want to know what that could be. So I think we're gonna stay in this box we have, which is, to me, is a pretty wide box. But I don't know what other genres could be inserted without getting cringe.
Or without compromising the integrity of the project. Like, you don't want to add too much stuff, and then all of a sudden, for lack of a better term, it's just a big clusterfuck, and you don't know how it's going to fit together. But I mean, you're right. Dark Tranquillity, it lends itself to a wide variety of influences, and I think it really shows across the discography. But man, I really gotta say, I'm super excited for this new album. I've been binging Not Nothing and The Last Imagination and Unforgivable for maybe 2 weeks straight, to the point to where my wife is like, hey, it's good, but can you pause it? And I'm like, no.
That's great to hear, man. Thank you. And don't listen to her.
Keep playing it. I'm gonna play it in her sleep so she memorizes it without realizing it.
Indoctrination.
No, it sounds so much fun. I'm really excited just to see what else you guys are bringing to it, because with Dark Tranquillity being one of those bands that has so many kinds of influences, I think that's the next exciting thing for me, is to see what's next, what's getting added, how are you playing on the things you do, and the avenues you go down, and the types of riff work that you do. It's just going to be fun to see. I mean, fuck, we got as of the time of this recording, I think it's 43 days until the album comes out. It's going to be pretty close to the release of this episode. So if you haven't yet, go pre-save Dark Tranquillity's new album, End Time Signals, on Spotify. It really helps out.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, a couple other things I was just kind of curious about. So like when you, not necessarily like how did you get in with them, but like when you met with these guys and you met, is it Mikael or Michael? I'm going to forgive the singer.
Mikael in Swedish, but we can say Michael. Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, forgive me. But like meeting them and joining the band and then being able to go on these like live tours, what was that experience like being dragged or brought into it when you were first, I guess, got the call? What were those years and those times like now to where you're seeing yourself?
At times blurry. But no, it was so much fun. We toured a lot. 17, 18 we did two North American tours and European tours and some other stuff too. So it was a lot of touring and got along great with the guys. The way I got into the band was via their old guitar player Niklas Sundin, who's still kind of with the band, actually writing on one of the songs on the upcoming album. He's written some riffs. And he's doing the videos, the animations, and the cover artwork. So he did a few artworks for my previous band Andromeda, and then we kept in touch over the years here and there. And then I was checking with him if they ever needed a new guitar player. I said, yeah, I would be up for it because I wanted to tour more. And then, he contacted me in mid 16 or August 16, I think. And then I started rehearsing with the guys in December 16. So, but before that, I never met the other guys. So I think we got along really well from the starts. And then it was just go. And just
go time from there. That's honestly, that's best case scenario, finding a group of guys that you gel with and you vibe with. I mean, even like I said, on a smaller level, I mean, there's been bands that like is even our band here that like it's like the third or fourth drummer, the second or third singer, and so on and so forth. And you're lucky to find other like-minded musicians that are willing to play without ego but understand that the ego fuels you and lifts you to do things that are great for, I mean, it's performance, it's an art. So you want to have that overall vibe. And I wanted to ask you about you said your older band Andromeda. Is that still something that you're going to continue to keep doing, or is it like right now it's all systems ahead on what you're doing here with Tranquility?
Well, Andromeda is pretty much on hold. We don't do anything anymore. We have a sixth studio album kind of finished, but there are some conflicts in the band and stuff, and it's not really going anywhere, and plus I don't really have time. But we said we would finish the sixth album, but let's see how that goes. But I'm actually doing some new music with David, the singer.
Okay.
And the drummer Thomas, he's really interested in also playing in this project. So it's not going to be Andromeda, but something else with those two guys, which I always got along really well with. So, but Andromeda pretty much on permanent hold, I would say. We never say never, but because I'm really proud of all the stuff we did, and it's
in the research up to doing this episode before we had you on, I was just trying to listen to anything and everything I could, and for what it's worth, I really dig Andromeda. I love the prog metal stuff. I think it was great, honestly. So just not too much to add there besides I'm sorry, I guess that there's nothing else I'm gonna be able to hear from them new, but I totally understand why, and that's kind of why I was asking. I was like, I like it. There's a really obviously heavy focus on the keyboards and the synth, and I just thought it was really cool. So I was curious to know if we're going to get anything else from them, but it looks like you've done some solo work and like some individual videos based on your YouTube as well. Have you always been able to play a lot of different styles of instruments besides guitar? Have you always been driven to be a musician like that?
Well, I've been writing other stuff than metal since my teens, just doing my own little things of different other types of music. I'm not really a multi-instrumentalist. guitar, of course, and bass, which is kind of, almost the same technique, and I can sing okay. And then, it's been a lot of programming drums, and when I play keyboard, it's very rudimentary. So on my solo stuff, I usually program the keyboards, or sometimes I play, but I can't really. I can write on a piano or keyboard, but I can't really play too much. So, but yeah, I like to do other stuff than metal. Like my solo albums I did recently is pretty much. Yeah, it's not even rock. It's just mainly atmospheric, very dark, moody music. Sometimes, a lot of times, doesn't have any guitars at all. So I enjoy doing that stuff too.
I think it's great to be multifaceted and well-rounded like that, and honestly, have another avenue to let those things out, and then you never know what it's going to grab for you to do with what you do mainly day to day.
Well, and we talk about this all the time on the show, is like, we're both metalheads. We love the dirtiest, nastiest, most brutal, intricate kind of metal, but even we listen to like stuff you would never expect us to listen to, just because you have to have a palate cleanser. You have to have something that kind of puts things apart in your head, so you're not just metal mode all the time. Because I don't know about you, Johan, but the more I get hyper focused like that, sometimes, and not all the time, but sometimes it's easy for me to miss the big picture, or it's easy for me to step away from my art and actually look at it objectively when all I've been listening to is metal. So it's cool to hear that you're into other types of music as well. It's not just one thing. And I'm actually really curious about this solo stuff. Is it just under your name?
Yeah, just my name. If you can spell my surname, which... Okay.
Oh, I'm German. I can spell anybody's surname.
German?
Yeah. My last name is Kolschin.
Okay.
Which means, I'm told it means cabbage picker, but I don't know if that's reality or if that's just another tall tale from my grandfather.
Well, my surname sounds German, but it's actually made up by my granddad that took his first name, put a Z at the end, and there you go.
Huh. That's cool. I like that.
That is pretty interesting.
I've been kind of dying to ask you too. So you grew up in like late 80s, early 90s in Sweden.
Yeah, I'm born 80.
80 was when you were born. So you were old enough to hear all the crazy black metal tales from Norway. You got to see all these bands kind of come up in that era. Yeah. What was that like? Because for us, it's like we can only imagine what it was like to be over in Europe during the birth of all these great bands and black metal and all these stuff that has to do with it. So were you into that at all when you were a kid, or was that just kind of a passing thing for you?
Yeah, me and my friends were all into that, all those death metal and black metal. I was not into black metal as much, but it was kind of a continuum of what was what, because there was like thrash death and then black and then somewhat black death, and like Dissection, for example, a band that I loved and still do, they were kind of in between death and black. And but anyway, we were reading a lot of fanzines and magazines, and I wasn't really going to those Norwegian black metal shows. Well, they didn't really play much shows back then, actually. But I remember reading a lot of those articles about the church burnings and all these interviews with these bands, and it was a bit weird because I don't know, I was always laughing a bit when a lot of these black metal bands were the way they were answering in interviews was, to me, was pretty ridiculous. Like they were trying to be so evil, and there was so much, and you can tell it was so much bullshit and sometimes really real insanity, because there were actually a bunch of guys, mainly in Norway, but also in Sweden, because there was kind of intertwined the scenes. But some of those guys were really fucked up. I mean, most of the people in the black metal scene in the bands, it was mainly, I think, posers, or it was more of an image. But some of those guys, like like Euronymous and Varvikinus and some of they were really actually fucked up in the head. And
I mean, like just hearing some of the stories,
trouble kids, or having a lot of problems. And it was a handful of individuals that really did some really shitty stuff. But other than that, it was a lot of, I think, bands that were it was just mainly, it was for the image. I think there's a lot of similarity between that true black metal scene, and in the early 90s, and also the gangster rap scene during the same time, mainly in the US. It was the similarity is that it's so important to be true, or to be a real gangster, or be a real Satanist. Well, I mean, I don't know how many really are that, or how many is for the image, so it's kind of really a kind of a macho bullshit thing.
I've never heard that comparison, Johan, but I think that's a really good comparison. Like the East and West beef versus kind of like the Floridian death metal kids and like the Norwegian black metal kids that always kind of beefed against each other. And Dusty, you've brought this up before with hardcore music in specific, but I mean, I will go as far to say it matters here is hip hop and rap do have a lot in common with hardcore and with certain genres of metal, because there is that whole almost fake it till you make it, macho, look at me, I'm the big guy on campus.
It's very tiresome to me. I wasn't brought up in that kind of household or with that kind of values. To me, it's a lot of shit to me, But
posturing and peacocking.
Yeah.
I would say I'm a big hip hop guy myself, just growing up here.
I love to listen to it, but some of the attitudes are.
Yeah, that's beyond me too as well. I mean, hey, when you read, like, again, you will run into some crazy ass characters that are about what they say though, and there's whether it's mental illness or just trying to be raw, it's direct, but.
Well, I think it's one of those things. It's like you can always, and you kind of touched on this earlier, you can tell who's kind of a poser and who's really kind of out there. But for me, it's just so fascinating. Like that time in history was just such a weird little eggshell of a time where nothing else was really going on like that outside of the comparison to hip hop. But the world was kind of sitting there and going, what the hell is this? And we really, haven't had too many artists to kind of go in that direction in a while. And God, thank you, because I don't want crazy people fucking ruling the world. But no, it's always fascinating to me, and it's a time in history I like to go back and kind of study and hear about. And I mean, they've made movies about it and books and autobiographies and all that. And it's such a weird time in history that I think is now unfortunately being memorialized for somewhat the wrong reasons. I mean, we all heard these tales like when we were kids. The whole Euronymous and Varg thing was like a myth in America when we were maybe in the early 2000s. But a lot of that stuff was responsible for kind of the tone of the scene for a while, and even in black metal. For me, I'm more about like, put it on the album. Yeah. Put it all on the album. Make me love it. Make me believe in it. Make me want more of it. But I'm not really the type of person that wants to hear politics or wants to hear those kind of things come out from an art. Like, if I love you for your music, man, I don't care about your politics. No. If I love you for your music, I don't care about what kind of posturizing you're trying to do. I just want you to put it into the music. And I think Dark Tranquillity, you guys do that really well. There's no bullshit with you guys. It's 100% straight good music. And I have to tip my hat off for that because there are so many bands still that are pulling that attitude, that are trying to be the darkest and the most brutal and the most angry. Oh, we fucking hate everybody. And for the most part, I think it's easy to see through. But man, I gotta say, I do appreciate you guys just leaving it all on the record.
Thank you.
Well, for sure.
Well, I'm to say, I honestly, I think that I'm very excited to hear the rest of the things that are going to be happening for you guys and what we're doing. When you do come to the U.S., hopefully you're anywhere near us, and I'll make a stop. I'll pop out. That'd be awesome. I've been dying to see you guys for honestly years, but also especially now with the wake of all these things that we're getting a new album, and there's never been really any lull. This is another compliment I can give as far back as whether you've been a part of it or not, is looking through the discography. There's something every couple of years, and it's obvious that you guys really, you give a shit about what you're doing, but just beyond the, like we've been talking about, the superficial level of getting it done because you have to, and you have record labels and deals. Like, there's never been a lull, and all of it's been good. I've been trying to go through all of the discography as back as far as I can, and much like you, have been a fan for a long time. And so
excuse me, what's a lull?
Oh, like a pause in releasing, like a downtime, like lulls, and then like a lull, and I
never heard that word. Okay,
really?
We're learning something every day. Yeah,
just
a boring period of time where there's nothing going on, and then you come back.
Like in a lullaby, is that the same root?
Probably.
Okay.
It could be. I don't know. Okay. It's always just been slang for us. We never really know where it comes from.
Actually, I'm gonna. Makes sense. Calm, or it says, I guess, the actual verbiage is to calm or send to sleep, typically with soothing sounds or movements, but then it's something else. It's like a temporary interval of lack of activity.
Yeah. But there has never really been a lull for Dark Tranquillity. You guys have continuously been putting stuff out, and it's working. I mean, people are loving it. Like, you go to your Spotify right now and it looks great. Like, it looks like you guys have had so much fun throughout the years. I love it. I want to know, are there any artists currently or past artists that you would have loved to feature on an album?
What guest artists on a Dark Tranquillity album? I don't know. I don't really have that mandate. But I can only speak for because with Non-Exist, my kind of death metal band / project, I had a few guests on the latest album. I had actually Mikael from Tranquillity. I had Chris Amott, which also I played with, and I had who was that? Marcus from Eucharist, an old Swedish band, and Raga from Merciless, and a couple other people. They were my heroes. But on one guy that I really like to have on a solo album would be Chris Poland, who great lead guitar player who played with Megadeth, of course, and has had, I don't know, you know Chris Poland?
I'm aware of him. Yeah, I'm a big Megadeth guy myself. So
fantastic, so underrated. So that would be one I would like to have as a guest. Other than that, I haven't really thought about it too much, but I'm sure there's a bunch.
So you mentioned Megadeth. I'm guessing you're a big thrash guy then?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Hell yeah, we love thrash. That's what our band actually plays, is like death thrash. So
nice.
Super into it.
Well, Johan, I do want to say I can let you get on with the rest of your evening, and I don't want to just wrap it up here, but I feel like we've gotten a lot of great things out of you. And again, I appreciate you so much for taking the time halfway across the world to speak with us and to connect with us. Is there anything that you feel, and I apologize to interrupt you, but I always like to ask right before we leave, is there anything, since you guys are on a PR run trying to do as much as you can, is there anything that you feel has been left unsaid about this album? Is there anything that you feel like maybe within the media or interviews or even with us today that you really want to put out as, here's the most important thing we can take away for what we're going to be doing next?
Well, for the United States, it would be that we're coming on a tour in September, so check out that and check out the dates. Would be the best for you to come out and check it out, the tour with Amorphis. Also, that the album is dropping on the 16th of August. That's very important, and you can also pre-order it and pre-save it right now. And check out the singles, and we have a forthcoming video also of Not Nothing coming pretty soon, because that single is out but the video is not. So
right on.
So that would be it, I think.
Hell yeah. Well, thanks again, Johan, for your time. Guys, go check out Dark Tranquillity if you haven't yet. If you don't, we can't be friends anymore. You've been listening to The Metal Massacre. Have a great day and keep it metal.